obviously this program and this logo, putting this hat on, it's always been really dear to my heart. I think it represents everything that is classy and elite in athletics. This brand is worldwide. To put this hat on was a very special moment for me. And I want our program to be a representation of how I feel about Notre Dame. I want these guys to compete. I want them to have a chance to win championships and hopefully get this program to a point that we're in regionals. And that's what I want. I'm trying to get to know the players. That's going to take a little bit of time. I've started to talk to each of them individually. I talked to the group on a conference call and the 15 that were on campus here. I talked to them in person, so we lined that up. Went well. Want to get to know them. Jack Swarbrick, Jody Sadler, during this process, they were professional. They were outstanding. It's a very thorough process, and I feel just blessed and fortunate that I'm standing here as a head coach at Notre Dame.
I know you've talked about competing at the highest level in the ACC. Why are you confident that you could be the guy that can come in here and make that happen?
Well, you have to have recruiting reach. I think the brand obviously gives you that right away, but you have to be ahead of it. You have to get on these guys younger and younger as the time goes on, and I think the experience they have when they see this campus, it should give us an ability to constantly upgrade the level of athlete that we're bringing to Notre Dame to play. That's part of it. Your player development, it has to be locked down. It has to be very good. It has to be individualized, because you're going to have to raise the bar for every guy that comes into the program. So you want to bring in a good athlete, but you have to find what makes him tick and what he needs. I mean, that's player development. Program development is the right calendar for the guys throughout their preseason, throughout their fall practice, their skill work. Very important. When you get to game management, you have to trust that you're doing the right things. You have the right package offensively for the guys. You have to try to develop starting pitchers, and you have to try to train guys to come out of the bullpen. Nobody that you recruit is ever going to have pitched the 8th or 9th inning of games. High school games are 7 innings. Those guys always start and probably throw the whole game, so they don't know how to prepare in the bullpen. You have to teach that, and you have to find guys that are resilient and bounce back and can handle that sort of thing.
Most of the teams you've coached have been good hitting teams. How hands-on are you with your hitters?
I do it. And obviously my assistants help, but my voice has been our voice offensively. I try to identify the needs of each hitter physically, and then we have approaches that we use, that we learn how to implement in game to try to attack how they're being pitched and what the opponent's doing. So that's something that I've always led. I'll continue to do that here. I do recognize that good pitching beats good hitting. So you have to try to match what's going on against you on the mound, and you have to play good defense. So as much as offense probably stands out, we've had the pitcher of the year in our league 3 out of the last 4 years and a lot of drafts, and I do recognize that pitching and defense keeps you in every single game, keeps you in every game. And then offensively, you hope that you find moments where you can impact the game and find chinks in the armor and try to create ways to score.
You have your pitching coach picked out yet?
I'm not ready to talk about staff. I interviewed everybody that was on staff at Notre Dame this weekend. That's what I did. And out of fairness to everybody, I'm not making any personnel announcements right now. I'm working on it. I know that it's very important. It's a critical component of what we do. I'm not there quite yet. I'm working through it. It's going to come soon. But in fairness to everybody involved and the group and all of our coaches and all of our staff, I'm waiting on that announcement just for a few days.
There's a perception that facility-wise, Notre Dame is maybe behind the curve for what it competes against in the ACC.
Yeah.
Have you been given any outline or blueprint by the administration as to any plans to upgrade that area to help facilitate the recruiting and all that?
I have not asked one bit. I think it's my job to go out there on the field and try to develop these guys and try to push it along. And I think as you do that, then some of those other things will come. And I understand where it is. I've been to the ACC places. I understand. not a huge deal to me right now. The huge part of this is developing these guys and creating a winning culture and trying to move the needle from within. I remember going to Vanderbilt years ago. If you rank that stadium in terms of the SEC and Arkansas and South Carolina's, I don't know that facility may not rank in the top echelon of that league. They've been okay. And I guess that's really how I'm going to approach this here. Like, we got to take care of our business. I was given an opportunity to try to lead and direct and move these guys. That's what I'm going to do. And as I get more comfortable with the facility, there's even things there right now within that I got to think about if I want to reorganize to find, like this teaching space for basketball is great. Do we need to, not something new, but just restructure the furniture and what we have to make it more conducive to teaching and learning. But big picture stuff, never really brought it up. Wasn't something on the forefront of my mind. Those players and the culture and developing them was the most important thing, to be quite honest with you.
You've also been mainly involved in the South. You started at Florida State. You assisted Coach Martin there at Auburn, and then you also are at East Carolina. Recruiting in the North, does that present a different set of challenges?
Well, I mean, timing-wise it does. I guess when you just look at the ability of the kids to play baseball, high school baseball in the early spring, it's different. I think our indoor facilities are very conducive to development. Like, our cage situation is fine. We've got mounds in there. The indoor football practice field is probably going to open up space in the old practice area for the other sports. So I think there's ways around it. This is a national recruiting game. This is a national reach, a national brand. So recruiting in the North is important, but it can't be, our only focus. I think the brand and the thought and the desire that so many people have to come to Notre Dame allows you to reach into Florida, into Georgia, Pennsylvania, Texas, California, to find talented people that have a desire to come here.
When you go to look at a player, what are you looking for?
Well, each position presents certain skill sets that I feel like are most important, and this revolves around the guys on the mound. So you have to prioritize. You're going to sign arms every year, probably 4 or 5 every single year. So you want to project and think that you have guys that are durable enough and physical enough and capable of flipping the lineup over 3 times. If you can't flip that lineup 3 times, is it realistic to think that you can be a starting pitcher and get into the 6th or 7th or 8th inning of a game? Probably not. You have to look at then guys that you feel like maybe can end games or can come in and strike some people out and get out of a jam in the 6th inning, 5th inning. So you're trying to develop it around the arms, and then how you build guys to end the game and be effective bullpen arms. Both of those are really, really important. Catching wise, it's always a defensive first position for me, and I'll assess what we have from our catching group as soon as I can see them for a couple days. I'll know, but that helps your pitching. Those guys lead and they receive and they block and they catch and they run the show. Really important. You got to be strong in the middle of the field, but the pitching, catching, middle infield, and Spencer Myers, who played center field, I've heard really good things about him. Like, that group right there is key. And then your corner guys, I think your third baseman essentially has to be similar to your shortstop in college. Your first baseman in the big leagues, like a major league first baseman, probably doesn't have to deal with the awkward stuff that happens in college games at first base. So your first baseman, as much as we want to think you want that guy to just hit home runs and drive in runs, if that guy can't defend, it really brings the whole group down. So, and you do have a DH. So there's your guy that, if he has some firepower, offensive game, that's probably your spot for somebody that can't defend. But I want to get athletic. I feel like if we get athletes, I've got the ability to try to hone their offensive game. But we got to be athletic, and it revolves around, again, what you can recruit on the mound to start with.
Where did you develop your coaching philosophy? Who perhaps had the most influence on you?
Mike Martin, when I played there, I felt like, even as a player, I wasn't a great player, but I was a great student. Like, I studied, and I felt like he had a knack for putting us in the best position to win, and he managed the pitching really well. He managed when to make that move from the bullpen. He had good sense of that, and I always filed that away because I thought he did it really well. And then, 5 years of pro ball. Clint Hurdle was our hitting instructor. Just a great people person. Greg Gross was one of our hitting guys, and I learned a lot from Greg. Each coach along the way, Dave Barnett gave me my first job. I mean, it ran a program complete. We had a JV and a varsity. He was the AD, so learning how to manage a lot of people and to come out of professional baseball to coach with Dave, there were some things I had never thought of from a player's perspective. So you got to go into taking care of the facility and making sure the field is groomed and edged and all those little things that as a player you almost took for granted. So I guess I pulled bits and pieces everywhere I went. And then you feel like, man, when I get my shot to be a head coach, I have to learn what works for me as a head coach with my personality and pull the traits from some of those great leaders and try to steal some of those and put them into the way you want to do it.
Blake, how would you describe your game day on-field demeanor? Are you a fiery guy? Are you a guy that sits back and lets his players play?
I'm probably more fiery at practice than I am in the game. I think the bulk of what you're doing with them, it happens day in, day out. It's going to start the first skill session we have. Like, if you're trying to create that in game one, I think
It's too late.
you've probably let some things slide that you should have addressed before. And I like to feel the game, and I need to watch. And I haven't coached third base since I was at Auburn as a head coach. I wanted to be in the dugout because there's things I want to watch in body language and things that with our charts that I need to be able to process to try to push the right buttons, whether the right button is an offensive play or whether the right button is a pinch hit or a move from the bullpen. So, I mean, I'm a fiery in-game guy, but I don't ever feel like I'm, an out-of-control type dugout coach in-game. Now, practice-wise, it's our job to really push and demand and teach and coach. And then in the game, it's strategize and try to find ways to navigate to win the game.
Is there a